All right, thank you so much. Yeah, thanks for everyone for making your way out here and joining us for this talk today. I'm Lauren. I'm an art director at Google. One kind of quick disclaimer, everything in here are my own opinions, my own thoughts. It's not representative of Google as a whole. They make us say that. So I wanted to talk a little bit about how AI image generation has started to change the way I work and the way that my agency partners work. I've given talks kind of like this internal at Google, talking about like how best to work with external agencies and like how to have very good creative collaborations. And this is an exciting opportunity because I know a lot of folks here come from the agency world. So I'm hoping to give you all a little bit more insight into, how does it feel from the client end, and how can you work with us more effectively. So I don't quite know what button to push on this. Do you guys know? Okay. All right. So this was kind of the log line for this talk. AI image generation is a disruptive technology. It's changing the way we create content. And critically, VFX houses and agencies are some of the earliest adopters. So back in 2022, I started seeing some really, really strange things starting to appear from our agency artists. And it was just kind of shocking to me. A lot of the same people that I think had the most existential concerns about this technology were also the same people who were using it first, which is kind of fascinating. But anyway, so what does this mean for artists, for clients, and for the cost and quality of the work that we're receiving? All right. So this is into 4 parts. I'm going to talk a little bit about what we're seeing externally in the news, talk about what I'm seeing in practice, and how this is working in animation production today, and then what's next, or at least what do I think is next. So in the news, I think we're seeing a lot of hand-wringing, a lot of anxiety, a lot of concern, a lot of it very valid. So, but this critically, this is a meme that I think we all saw recently. I want AI to do my laundry and dishes so that I can do art and writing, not for AI to do my art and writing so I can do laundry and dishes. And I think that's something that resonates with a lot of us. So what does that mean for art making, right? Is there a way that AI can do our art making, but make it easier, take away the drudgery of it so we can still focus on the creative sides? And I also want to talk a little bit about this project, because this is something that was in the news a lot recently. So this was this opening credit scene to this Marvel series, Secret Invasion. And they took a lot of criticism in the news from people being really concerned about, did this studio, has it already replaced all of its artists with robots? Is that something we need to be worried about moving forward? Does it look good? So I'm going to talk a little bit more about my thoughts on this later on, too. So in practice, so again, in 2022, way back in the dark ages, 18 months ago, I started seeing some really, really strange things from our partners. And let me give a little bit more introduction about the kind of work that I do at Google. So I'm an art director on the Google Meet video calling team. So specifically, I work on all of the virtual backgrounds that you all may be familiar with. I also work on all of the AR filters that we have. So specifically, most of these examples pertain to virtual backgrounds that some of our partners were pitching. So what I typically see in early production is stuff like this, traditional mood boards, references, something like what you might see in Pinterest. And what's nice is in a layout like this, you kind of get a good sense of the mood, the vibe, what specifically is the creative director from the agency pulling out of these images that they like, So the paintings, the textures, the lighting, the general vibe. And then you can see down there in the corner, that was the final result. This was a background that we did for Black History Month this year. Now, in 2022, I started seeing some of these things instead. So strange images that look mostly done, but also bad. And the problem with this is I wasn't giving context. So like in the last image that we saw, can I go back? Yeah, I can go back. So the last image I saw, I got like tons of context where it's like, in this image, I like the black statues. In this image, I like the Art Deco pillows. But then here it's like, okay, so we have this like kind of palazzo, but it's got like a weird kind of metal railing, and it's all kind of like a weird corridor, and it's kind of ugly. Then it's like, okay, so do you like the metal railing? Am I gonna get a metal railing? Because I don't think I want a metal railing. I don't think anyone wants a metal railing. So it was a very confusing time. And now suddenly this becomes my job, you know? So it's like this like highlights for kids. What's wrong with this picture? So let's take a look at this next image. So this is an image that one of our agencies actually sent me. So let's do a little interaction here. What's wrong with this picture, everybody? Everything. Yeah, what else?
Lamp has no port.
Yep, lamp, lighting, composition. Yeah, like what is up with that sunbeam? Why is it going way to the side when the other lighting's going everywhere else? Yeah, anything else?
Incomplete piece of furniture.
What is it?
An incomplete piece of furniture.
Incomplete, yes, insanity chairs. There's insanity chairs everywhere. It's just descending into chaos. Yeah. And like, let's not even talk about that art on the wall, because that is like a horror show. All right. So this is what I'm starting to get, and I'm a little confused, a little scared. So it only takes like these agency creative directors a few seconds to generate something like this. But then the real work starts to begin when we're trying to figure out like what is this actually saying? So is this like a Mexican-inspired entryway living room? And then my next question is, do people have rooms like this in Mexico? Because for this specifically, we were trying to target Mexican users because we try to be like really like global and multinational with the kinds of imagery that we use. And we knew that like kind of Latin American themed backgrounds is something we were missing at the time. But then it's just, so there's all these strange choices that are being made. And why? What do we actually want to say? So it's putting a lot of work on me suddenly as a client. And like, I don't want to do extra work. So like what I really need is for them to just tell me like, we're doing a living room, it's an entryway corridor, we've done the research, this is what we want to say. All right, and then, just descends into chaos. So I wanted to do a little close-up of that like insane painting, which I actually kind of like, but I don't want to put it out into the world. Okay, so image generation and production pipelines today, all right? So I'm gonna talk about like kind of the 3-4 ways. All right, so this slide deck, I originally made it in Google Slides because remember, I'm a Google artist, and I exported it as a PowerPoint, and apparently like the numbering system broke. But just imagine that says 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, so mood boards and concept visualization. So this is one place where our early adopters, our early agencies really started using this technology 18 months ago. So here's another look at that spread of the kind of like Mexican, Latin American inspired space. And this actually, I think, is an example of a place where it succeeded. So here, we had a lot of stakeholders that we were dealing with, like folks from across Google with Mexican backgrounds who were helping us art direct this and make sure it was truly authentic. And by being able to show them a spread of like 10, a dozen different options, it kind of helped them hone in on like what they wanted to say very quickly. So that I think actually is quite useful, even though it is still more helpful if we get more information about each individual image on like why we like this, what we're actually gonna like move forward into production with. But critically, all right, so this is the final image that we ended up using, and it wasn't until after we'd launched that I noticed this weird little like cat door above the stove. So that's real. You can go use that in Google Meet right now. There's a cat door above the stove. I don't know why it's there. So Midjourney or whatever, I don't know what image generator they used. Whatever image generator they used added this bizarre thing, and then it just got pushed further and further and further into production, and finally it launched, and we just didn't catch it in time. This was fully remodeled, like a team of artists like remade this, but they were working from an original image that had been created by a non-human entity. And it didn't know that cat doors do not go above stoves. I should have known that, but we missed it. So it's just something to be really, really careful of when you're using this for your reference. And, all right, so here's another image that I got from an agency around that same period. So this AI-first approach, it can make it can just start to make things really complicated because you start by like zooming in on all the details and you have this like mostly finished image, but then you have to like zoom out and try to find the concept. Like, what is the point of this space? I mean, it's kind of cool, it's kind of sci-fi, but it's also kind of retro and kind of old. So like, what's the point? What are we trying to say? So I think this could have been successful. We ended up passing on this. We never made this. I think it could have been successful if they'd given me more, if they'd said, rather than just this kind of like weird viewing window, what if it's a retrofuturist sci-fi spaceship viewing platform reminiscent of like 60s and 70s sci-fi? And like that could have been cool, you know, then I would know like what they were trying to say. But I didn't get that. And also I don't know that I kind of don't think we would have moved forward on that anyway, because I kind of don't think our users are interested in that. I don't know. But anyway, just this I think would have been a successful approach. You just got to make it clear. What is this supposed to be saying and why? What do we like about this image? Don't just give me like, you know, a truckload of AI-generated images that you could make in an hour and then expect me to do the work of trying to figure out what it's supposed to be. Okay, so then another place where I think this is actually pretty helpful, I've been using AI image generation more and more for feedback. So here's an example. We have this classroom background. And this was an early render that we got from this agency. Now, this particular agency actually does not use, as far as I know, any AI image generation in their pipeline. They're just really, really fast modelers, and they do really nice architectural visualization. But they gave me this image, and it's like, it's cool. It's got that Boston Dynamics dog we all saw yesterday, so like that's neat. I don't know that it would fit on the wall right there, but maybe. But it's like, you know, it's just kind of cold, sterile. It's got a lot of like graphic lines. It didn't feel very comfortable. So I was able to pop over to a generator and just get like a better vibe for what I wanted. I want something that's a little warmer. I want plants. I want nice lighting. So I was able to send this to the agency with a detailed breakdown of what I liked about this. Things that I needed to be really clear about were like, please don't put like all this weird writing, like old papers tacked up on the wall. There's actually kind of like a creepy curtain in the corner. It looks almost like a hospital curtain, so don't do that. We don't need like a mounted globe on the wall. I don't think people mount globes on walls. But as long as you're very, very clear, what is it that we like about this? It's the overall vibe. And this is what we ended up with. So it still feels like the same original space, but just a lot warmer. A lot more comfortable, more inviting. And this is also live in Meet right now. You can use it. And it actually does pretty well. We have a lot of education users. So here is another example. So I mentioned we do a lot of backgrounds. We also do a lot of AR effects, which I think might be a little more of a hit with this crowd. So last year, we started this project to do all of these like really like high production value AR characters in Meet. And early on, some of the sketches I got from the agency were this. And I did not like these. They looked like kind of these like super cartoony, like Hanna-Barbera, Yogi Bear style characters. And like, I don't want Yogi Bear. Like, I want high production value. I want like Puss in Boots. I want like, you know, beautiful. And I'm also very slow at drawing. I like drawing, but I'm not very fast at it. So I just popped over to an image generator and was able to generate like a lovely sketch of like kind of a stylized but cute kind of kitten, kitty, cat character. So I could pass that off to the agency. And this is what we ultimately ended up with. So that sketch was enough for them to get the vibe, to figure out like what we actually wanted to say and what this actually needed to look like. And it got us there in a fraction of the time. All right, so now, using AI to speed up visual markups. This is another place where, for me as an art director, AI has become very, very much a part of my toolkit. So, I just want to say thank you to Adobe. Firefly is amazing. It is so fast. So here, I kind of went back to that original meme, like I want AI to do my laundry and dishes. Like this is laundry and dishes, you know? Like clone stamping out like a set of headphones, that is boring, it is slow, I don't want to do it. But now with Adobe Firefly, if I need to change the fit of this effect and just like make it like a little more cropped into the ears, it is so, so, so very fast to just use this like magic eraser. And like, okay, did it erase his ears? Yes. So is it perfect? No. But it doesn't need to be, right? Because the headphones are covering up the ears anyway. So this is something where it's just important to remember that AI is a tool. You know, it's a tool in your toolkit. It gets you to an endpoint faster, so you can get higher quality results more quickly. All right. And now here is probably maybe what we're moving towards eventually, but we're not quite there yet. Can we use generated imagery as a final deliverable? Well, I mean, you can, like, Marvel did recently. I think the problem is right now, a lot of it looks the same, and it's getting easier and easier and easier to spot, so it looks like a shortcut. So like this is this intro again to that like Secret Invasion Marvel miniseries. And again, it got like a lot of really kind of negative press because people could so clearly identify that this was AI generated, and it felt, again, it felt like a shortcut. And audiences just don't have a lot of patience for that right now. Could they have done it differently to make it not feel like quite so much of a shortcut? Like maybe. Was it still successful in its own right? I think there are arguments that it was, and I'll go into that a little bit more later. But just basically the technology as it is used right now, I don't think it's ready as the final deliverable. Here's another example. So something that I have seen from the Google side is agencies bidding on projects that they don't actually have a pipeline to fully deliver because they expect AI to do a lot of the work. So it's just like a big red flag. Be very, proceed with a lot of caution if you expect AI to take over a lot of your pipeline and do a lot of the work for you. Because of course the problem is like, once you have a generated image, it's just like final, it's baked in, you don't have layers, you don't have like polygons, like you can't move the camera, you can't change the lighting, so the most minor feedback becomes almost impossible. At least right now, it's probably gonna get better, it will get better. But yeah, right now it's just like a big proceed with caution. Okay, so what is next? Will everything start to look the same, in parentheses, bad? Will people lose their jobs and will it become cheaper to make art, and is that a problem? So, will everything start looking the same? All right, so here, hold on to your seats because I think this is my most controversial slide. All right, how much variation did we actually have before AI? And I'm sorry if any of you all's art is up here. I actually think I think the stuff on ArtStation is beautiful. I think the average level of art is very impressive. But I think a lot of it looks a lot the same, and so is human-crafted imagery better than AI imagery just, by benefit of a human having spent hours creating it, even if the result is indistinguishable? And I think that's something we all have to look into our hearts and really do some soul searching on. And then back to this example again, right? So is this actually any good? And are we gonna start to see this everywhere from now on? Is that like a dystopian future for us, where like everything is like kind of like a little messy and a little maybe unfinished feeling? But then let's dig into it a little more. Like, is this any good? So I think they actually put a lot of thought into this. Like, I think the style is reminiscent of German Expressionism. As soon as I saw that, so I went to art school and all that, so I had to learn about all the different modern art movements. So to me, it looks like, a Kirchner painting. So I think that they were digging into that early post-war or interwar angst. And the animation style also, I think, is actually reminiscent of paint on glass, and which is a very high animation technique, This is the kind of thing that wins Academy Awards for, best animated short. But to me, that's what this looks like. So it looks like it is drawing on a lot of real, true, artistic traditions that are very valuable in their own right. But then it's it still looks like AI, So all the chattery lines and the windows kind of changing from one frame to the next. That's very characteristic, at least right now, of AI video generation. So it kind of feels like a mistake. And it's my question here is, did Marvel know enough about AI video generation to know that this look is characteristic of AI video generation? I would guess not, just by having read the articles where the director says, oh, I don't know how they made it. That, my guess is they didn't know what they were getting. So they probably didn't know that they were wading into a pretty big, a pretty big controversial topic. All right, so will people lose their jobs because of this? So I very much am in the entertainment world. So I see a lot of this open to work in LinkedIn. Things are kind of dark right now in the world of animation. Is that because of AI? I don't think that's at all because of AI right now, but I think AI is very much a scapegoat. Just technological leaps have human costs. They're hard to quantify. I think that Secret Invasion example is really interesting because the studio very clearly says, like, no jobs were lost by having done it this way. And I think that's true. I think they had a set budget, and I think that if the client had not gone with that look, they would have found something else that would have still met the same budget. But yeah, there's a lot of angst around this. And also, it's like these kinds of things, this industry goes in cycles, right? So like we've always kind of had mass layoffs in animation. I think a really good analog is the digital revolution of the 2000s, where there was suddenly this huge leap forward in technology. And the people who really suffered were the highly specialized, like the mid and late career workers who didn't really have the flexibility to pivot. I think we're gonna see that here too. Will it become cheaper to make art? Now this part actually is, I think, the part that's really exciting. So cheap work has always existed, but now I think cheap work made with the help of AI, especially in that kind of like early production and like the mood boards and character design, I think it has the potential to make cheap work look a whole lot better. And I think this is really exciting for creators who have low or no budget. I think we're at a stage here where maybe for the first time we're going to start to level the playing fields between huge studios and low budget creators. So I think the question of will work become cheaper, I think at the studio level it's always going to be expensive because I think if you have a specific look and you have a huge team, it's always going to be hard. But I think that there's just a lot of opportunities. Okay, so thank you. That is my whole talk. So I went a little long there. I was hoping to have a little bit of time for questions. I think we have a couple of minutes here. But yeah, if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to, yeah.
Thank you for the talk. I'm curious about your take on how this is evolving the skills or tools you should be using to, like if you were going to design a curriculum for an art director, starting from now, what would you prioritize or deprioritize in that?
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, I would definitely ask people to spend time using Adobe Firefly, using all the markup tools. Like I've started using that like every day now. And yeah, I think just getting really good at like writing your prompts and being very specific about like the image you have in your mind. And also, if you think back to that slide with the spaceship, just being very specific. If you have a generated image and it's cool, you need to be able to articulate why it's cool and what about it is working. So I think just like being very good at that kind of communication. Sure. Yeah. You?
Hi, this talk has been very enlightening. I'm excited. I would love to talk with you a little bit more later. But as an art director and working for an agency, I know you're working for Google now, do you have any insights on the new hiring processes? Say, what you were hiring for 5 years ago, are you now looking for individuals that are prompt crafters or that maybe have a little bit more of the AI expertise? Is that coming up on your radar as being more important than previous skills?
Gosh. So things are tough right now with hiring. I'm not doing a lot of hiring right now. We actually, back in the period where we were getting a lot of this AI image generation, we were like staffing up and like working with a lot of different agencies. And since then, we've actually constricted back down and we only have kind of 2 main agencies we work with. The main thing is I would just want to see that people aren't using it as a shortcut. Like I would want to just make sure that people are very cognizant of the concept that they're trying to convey. So yeah, I don't want people to be afraid of using image generation if it speeds things up. So it would be a little bit of a red flag if people are like purists and they're like afraid to use the technology. So I definitely wouldn't be afraid of it, but also just don't be too reliant on it. I don't know if that answers the question super well, but hopefully. Do we have time for one more, or are we good, do you think?
I think
we're good. Okay, cool. Yeah, feel free to come up to me afterwards. I'm happy to keep continuing the conversation. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.